Yeah, so I'm actually going to live stream this on YouTube. Just talking about boundaries, questions and answers. So today, well, last time we talked about boundaries and the importance of, well, the time before that, we were talking about boundaries and the importance of knowing yourself. So, you know, whenever you're actually setting them in the right energy, are you doing it in love? Or are you doing it out of fear? Um, are you doing it out of, control? Or are you actually trying to make sure you're being accountable for your own where you put yourself? And then last time we talked about kind of like how to set the boundaries, where to figure out where you need to be maybe making your boundaries. Um, and so now today what we're doing is the question answer about, like a little bit more about boundaries, because I feel like this is an area that so many people don't fully understand. And I've been studying it for probably over a decade now. And I feel like I'm just now getting it on certain levels. And I do want to make sure I'm clear that there are certain things and I'm still like I'm learning and I've learned certain lessons along the way, but I feel like no matter where we are in life, there's always a new challenge, a new thing, a new area to evolve in and become more in. So there's always something to learn, no matter how much you think you may know. But I don't know, the more I think I know, the more it's like it all comes to like to a similar thing is like basically you are responsible for yourself and where you put yourself. You're in this avatar, you're in this body, and you've got the energy of all that is flowing through you. And then we get to decide what wiring as we get older we're going to hold on to, like what kind of thoughts we're going to hold on to, what how we allow that to affect our feelings and our actions and everything from there. And I think boundaries, when it comes down to it, is just keeping yourself on your path on in alignment, and keeping yourself out of distractions to keep it really simple. So saying all that, welcome guys. And I just was curious, what you guys thought about last time and any kind of questions that you guys might have.
I thought it was good. The only questions that came up for me were, um, oh golly, like, how often do we need them, really? If we're okay inside of ourselves and nothing's really knocking off of our center, I'm finding I don't always have to create a boundary if I'm okay. You know what I mean?
Boundaries really aren't, boundaries should be embodied. So
Hmm.
what I mean by that, and boundaries aren't a place to control anyone or to create walls. They're for you. And like a boundary would be like this, like I don't hang out with meth heads. I just don't. Do I have to tell people that? No. Do I have to go up to a meth head and say, I don't hang out with meth heads? No. Like I just don't hang out with meth heads. And or I don't hang out with, and I'm just using something specific, but I don't hang out with druggies. I don't hang out with people who sit around and drink all day on their front porch. But I don't have to go and tell people that. I just don't do it. And that's just a boundary I have. Like I could have a boundary of no cussing. Now, if my boundary is other people shouldn't cuss around me, and then I just need to exit when they start cussing. I don't need to tell them, hey, stop cussing around me. I'm not okay with cussing. Well, that's you controlling the other person. That's not you embodying your boundaries, because embodying your boundaries would be getting up and say, and you could say, I'm uncomfortable with cussing. That's you being vulnerable and telling somebody, hey, I'm uncomfortable with that. Now, if somebody chooses to still do it around you or be like, well, I don't care, I'm going to still be me, which they have every right to be. Just because you have a boundary doesn't mean somebody needs to be changing themselves to make you happy either. So it's like boundaries are not about changing a scenario, changing a person, other than changing where you allow yourself to be. So you don't have to create. I actually think creating boundaries only has to come from those that never knew how to embody them. Because there's a lot of people who naturally grew up in healthy families who just know how to embody them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. Um, getting up and walking away is easy unless someone's living in your house.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's a little harder.
yeah. Yeah, so do you want to give me an example? Because I know that, because like I've been with I've been in some toxic relationships, so I understand that.
Well, you brought up cussing, for example. I'm not a personal fan of it. It's not in alignment with me. I don't like it, and I didn't raise my children to cuss. However, they are, and they're older.
Mhm.
One of them's the youngest is 18. One of them is 25 here, getting some of his own stuff together. But yeah, it's like, and I tell them all the time, "Hey, start over," or "I can't hear you. Can you rephrase that, please?" And they're getting it, but a lot of it's like, "Mom, this is normal. Everybody talks like this," and a lot of people do, but yeah.
Well, and there's hard boundaries and there's soft boundaries. So like, does it really bother you a whole bunch? And also I would ask why, if it's not you saying it, if somebody else, like why does it bother you that much?
It bothers me because the youngest one has Tourette's. And she wasn't using swear words as a chirp before, but
Mm,
because she's around it all the time, it's happened. And I don't, that's going to affect her life. It's going to affect her work environment. um yeah, so there's some legit reasons why I don't like it, but now I can't undo what's happened because it's part of her now, I guess. So
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes it's learning just to accept and come to grace with the things that we can't change. Going to cover, um, and like just knowing that, and then being okay with the fact that you can't control the world around or how it's going to affect your children. Um, but I understand how you don't want that to happen completely. But on that one, I would be like, is that a big enough issue to affect your relationship with your children, to cut them off? And you get to decide. Like, if it is, then okay, it is for you. It's a hard boundary. But if it's not, then can you have change your perception around it so that it doesn't bother you? So you can come to grace with it.
Yeah. And one of the things that came up over the last week
Mhm.
is the concept of obligations, and why do you have them? What can you do to get yourself back to inspiration? And if you can't, can you let it go? And these boundaries and rules that we set for ourselves, is it hard or soft, like you said? And if it's something that can't be tangibly held, can you let it go?
Yeah. And that's hard. Like that's actually something that I need to teach on next after we talk about boundaries and really get into the nitty gritty of it, is letting go, surrendering to what is the things that you can't control, and even past traumas, all that kind of stuff. There's a really great book by Dr. David R. Hawkins, which the map of consciousness that I was showing you guys is based off of his Power versus Force book. But he's got another one called Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender. Such a good book. I would recommend everyone get that book and read it 100 times if you can. It's taught me a lot. But yeah, on boundaries also, when somebody's living with you, it's figuring out which really are your hard boundaries, which ones are your soft, and how can you, um, you don't want to tiptoe around people. That's the point of having boundaries, is so you don't have to tiptoe around people, but also people shouldn't have to tiptoe around you either. You know, like, so, because I've seen people use boundaries as a controlling thing and not realize it, or even a wall where they just cut all these people off. And it's like, was it really that big of a deal? You know, like, you got to know how important is that relationship to you, and then how important is what this is, and is it something that you can change your thought about it to make it better? Or is it something that they're really doing that's something you can't change your thought about? Like if somebody's hitting you in the face, you know, you can be like, that's not bothering me, but it's really bothering you. And the only way to get away from that is actually getting up and walking away. And if the person keeps on wanting to hit you in the face, then it's like, well, I just can't be around you because I can't keep doing that to myself. And that's where you're like literally hurting yourself and abandoning yourself for someone else. That's where boundaries really need to be drawn, is where self-abandonment starts.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything? Like, if you want to bring up scenarios that you're like, I don't even know how to handle this scenario, or like how to set a boundary here, or any kind of a, because boundaries are not just with people, they're with your, the boundaries are for you and with yourself. So like it could be time, it could be food, it could be relationships, it can be so many things. What I can do is I can just start. Yeah. What's up,
Yeah,
Brian?
I think I've done pretty good with people. Um, Time may be sometimes a little difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, so I'm actually gonna live stream this on YouTube. Sorry, guys. Go ahead, Ryan.
no, I mean, I think I haven't thought about it like that for a long time, or for, I guess, until recently. But yeah,
So you think you have like time, missing time boundaries?
oh
Or,
yeah, yeah. Like when I really make myself set me a timer and say I'm going to work for 45 minutes, I don't care unless somebody walks through the front door, beating on my door. I'm doing it no matter what. And as long as I stick with it, I'm like, that's great. But I can squirrel brain off to the left and come back 20 minutes later.
well, and this is also where, man, I really love this back and forth where we're doing this question and answer, and y'all are sharing all stuff, because sometimes it's just knowing yourself. Like me, you time block me. I almost feel like I'm in a prison. I don't know what to do with myself. Like I won't, like all of a sudden my brain goes blank. I like my creative spirit just like gets smothered. And like, and I'm too, and I'm not saying that time, like having time blocks isn't a good thing. I recommend people having them. But you got to know how you work and who you are as a person too. Like, does your magic come from? And how do you find your magic? And like when I say magic, I'm just talking about, where does your gift, the thing that you know you're good at and you can offer people, like when does that come out? And how does that come out naturally? And then how can you magnify that? Because like uh but if you are somebody who you're like, no, I really need a time boundary and you have to discipline yourself, that's a different thing, So like, where do you think you are?
Well, like for a long time, I always thought the task or had to be difficult for it to be important.
Yeah.
Uh, like I do numbers. I mean, like me and my daughter will be talking, and she'll say something. I'll say, well, that's 36 or that's 102. And she'll be like, how do you know that? Well, it's just easy. So therefore, I've always overlooked that. So if I never put the importance on the time of the zone of genius or whatever. So I've always.
You know what I've noticed? And this is something that I wish people would talk more of, the zone of genius, like you said. It's this flow, this level of creativity. And anybody who is top level in anything they do, top athletes, top actors, top paid in business people, anything like that, they understand the flow, the genius flow. And this is a place, if we go back to the map of I'm going to just go back to the map of consciousness real quick, guys, so I can talk a little bit on this, because this is so good. Because people talk about time blocking and all this a lot. And I think it can be misunderstood about how to use it for certain people. So let me share that. Okay. So the flow of genius, or the zone of genius that people talk about, is actually when you're up here. When you're feeling love, joy, peace, enlightenment. This is when songwriters are making songs in 3 minutes that are now going to be a hit for a lifetime or more than their lifetime. This is when people write books and create movies and create business ideas, and just, this is your zone of genius. This is where it's at. It starts here, though. When you start in courage and you start doing all this is where money does want to start coming to you. Truth starts getting revealed, because down here is like, you're just in your own personal ego hell down here. And money does not want to stay. It'll try to get away, even when it comes to you, which will be in desire, anger, and pride is when you'll start getting money, but you can't keep it. Shame to fear, you're not even in action. It's always somebody else's fault. You're just a victim. You could even be homeless in these states. And so these are the emotions that negate, they take things away from you that you want in your life if you act in these. And I don't want to call them emotions, because the emotion is okay. The feeling. So emotion versus feeling. Do you guys remember what we talked about on that?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's the difference between an emotion and a feeling?
Mm. And emotion is something that happens when something outside of you gives you that feeling. The feeling, like what's on that chart in the upper stages, comes from inside.
Yeah. So thank you, Audra. And that's good right there. So emotions are actually the first thing you feel when the hormone is dropped from the brain into your bloodstream, from the thought. And so every emotion comes from a hormone that's dropped down. But the hormone drops down because a thought sparks it, subconscious or conscious. Either way, it was dropped because of that. So this hormone is going through your bloodstream, and it lasts at least 15 minutes. But let's just say your friend comes up and scares you. Okay, so your initial emotion is fear, but then you think about it, you consciously process the emotion, and you start laughing because there is nothing to fear. It was your friend scaring you. So you may still have that hormone going through you that's making your heart beat, but now the feeling is over here. Consciously processed emotion is now a feeling of joy or acceptance or neutrality. You're no longer in fear. So the emotion could be different than the feeling, because the emotion is more of a hormonal subconscious initial response, and the feeling is how you processed it consciously. And most of us, we hold on to the thought, so we keep the feeling going. And you can change the thought. Like we've talked about, like thoughts are like TV guides, just scrolling along. You've got plenty of them to choose from. You don't need to pick the one that you don't want, because you get to watch that channel once you pick that that thought. The hormone's going to drop down, the projection screen turns on, and you're projecting that channel now out into the world, and that's what's going to be reflected back. So it's like, okay. And so when you're working and people are talking about time blocking and all of that, like There's a difference in time blocking where you force it and time blocking where you're excited to do it because you're excited to make this time for yourself to do this. Do y'all feel the difference between the two? I have to time block to make sure this gets done, or I'm going to set time aside for this because I get to do this. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And so whenever you set time aside, and this is what I think is important with time blocking, if you're going to set time aside, set it aside like you're self-caring for yours. Like it's a self-care. Like you set time aside for a massage. You set time aside for an adventure. You set time for a walk. Set time for the thing that you want to do too. Because hopefully you're enjoying what you're doing. And have that mindset instead of I have to do it, because then you're down here. And the time blocking is going to be hard to keep too when you're in a state of doing it because of lack or out of desperation or out of need instead of out of want, out of joy, you know, out of like courage to do it or acceptance or, you know, any of these higher feelings that you can be in. So if you notice that you're having a hard time with your time, first off, are you honoring yourself in every moment? Because that's the boundary, is every moment, no matter with people, with time, with anything going on, are you honoring yourself? Now, if doing the time blocking is actually dishonoring yourself, pay attention to that. Are you doing it from a place of lack? But if the time blocking is honoring yourself and what your goals are, then why is it hard to keep?
I don't know. I mean, you said a lot though, right there. The big difference between doing it out of lack or out of honoring yourself. Um, the time blocking has just always kept me on pace because
Mhm.
it's like because at that point it's a game. Let's you know, being a male, we have competition and everything. It's just like let me see how many pages I can get done, or you know, and it turns something into from work to the 12-year-old competition back again to I can do it faster than you, or I can do it faster than myself. Um, but also, it's gotten the time has changed for me a little bit because, like, I'm doing a 5K over the 4th of July, and I've never wanted to do it, but I've always said I was going to do it. I mean, I've been talking about this for years, and I had no desire to do it. But somebody said something, and I was like, "Oh, that'd be cool," and so I fell into the trap. Um, and and now the time to do it is it's blocked in that spot, so it's more about me than everybody else. When I block it, I can push people out or items out and go. I think that's important. There's a reason it's important to me.
Mhm. So what do you think is the problem?
I think I can do more than one thing at a time, and you can't, and you really can't. Uh, I mean, you really can't. Or let me rephrase: I can't email and talk on the phone and try to put together the paperwork. It just takes longer. Um,
Yeah.
and I think the science proves that also. No matter how much I've tried to say, "Oh, I can do this," so I think it keeps me on task better.
Yeah, it the science does say that you can't really multitask because your brain has to kind of restart every time to get
Yeah,
the focus back to that. And you waste some time in between all that.
yeah. So,
I
uh,
think it's, but I used to, I don't know, I used to work off two computers because I would blow up the computer every 6 months when I worked in finance. And so they had to get me two computer screens and two computer monitors And I literally worked on both at the same time, but my mind processes really, really quickly. So I don't know if I was multitasking or just my mind was going fast. And like people were, people in the office was like, I have to see how you do this. And they would just stand behind me and they couldn't even watch me work. They were like, I can't even keep up with what you're doing right now. I have to get out of here. And I'm like, yeah,
Oh yeah,
well.
that was the problem with my old job was I got really I fell into the comparison trap when it came to that because I got mad. Not that we had this young lady, golly, she was so fast. I wasn't mad that she was so fast, but I'm like, why am I not that fast? So, uh, yeah,
Yeah, no, we all have our own gifts. And I think that's like the thing about it is like honoring ourselves every moment. Like that's the theme. Honor yourself in every moment. Like don't like compare yourself to other people because then you're not really honoring yourself. Because like we don't even compare to other people. Like
yeah, I know, but I thought I had gotten so much better at that until me and one of my mentors was talking last week, and I thought I did really good. And he started talking about gratitude. I was like, I did really good at that. And then I noticed, well, I had a meeting with him Thursday night, and one of them was talking about her revenue. And at one point, I'd have been like, damn it, why can't I have that? But I was like, found myself going, holy cow, that's amazing. Um, and I
yeah,
think that,
I think people show us like what's capable and what's available for us. So it's not like something to be like envious of, but like it's like, oh wow, you can have that. That means I could have it too if I wanted it.
well, and that conversation me and you had Friday,
Hmm.
uh, it was amazing. It opened up, yeah, I mean, I was going over the notes before we started. Um, there's some things I didn't believe that I could have. Like I want this property. Oh my gosh. I don't know how many millions it cost. It's at least 700 acres. Uh, but there were certain things I didn't believe that I could have. And my mentor talks about it's the difference between knowing and embodying
Yeah.
certain things. Like before this 5K started, if you'd have told me I'd had to go walk 3 miles, I'd been like, oh no, I'm not doing that. And then, um, yeah, so I think a lot of people, myself included, know that we can have this, and we know we can have it, but we don't believe it.
That's really true. Actually, that's part of some of the stuff that I'm working on for the future classes too, is the epiphany of realizing that you didn't even know that you could have it. You didn't even know you could question that. You didn't even know you could ask. It's like, wait, I could have had that the whole time. It's like, yeah, you just were settling. You
Yeah,
never
and
asked.
like I've been working on something for 9 weeks now. And I mean, as my dad would say it, he'd be like, I won't say it the way he said, you're halfway doing it. And finally, after 8.5 weeks, something's finally clicked. And I mean, but like the charts you show earlier, that puts a lot of things in alignment where you're at. Um,
Did
and
y'all see the prompts that I'd come up with so that you can see if somebody has narcissistic or psychopathic tendencies in their gene keys? I didn't know that you could find that, but I started noticing a pattern as I was looking at different people's gene keys that I noticed had some narcissistic tendencies also. I'm not calling them narcissists. Not everybody is a narcissist that has those tendencies. We all have at least two of those tendencies each, no matter what. But like, um, that it's really cool to be able to see how certain shadow, it's not cool. I mean, it's kind of sad, but to see certain shadows that people have that are significantly difficult to overcome because they don't have in their chart any accountability. So that's what I look for, is the lack of accountability and blaming and emotional manipulation. And when I see all of that in their charts, I'm like, we got a little monster here. No.
See, and that's something the way I grew up at, I was always taught not to believe any of this stuff.
Mhm.
And it's crazy. I've always believed part of it, but I'm like, there's a whole lot of coincidences. And I went back on some people that I know enough information that are close to me, and I've done that. And I'm like, holy cow, that's them too.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, once you, and that's why I started off with understanding your avatar by pulling all y'all's information, your gene keys, your natal chart, all that. Even if you don't believe in astrology, it's going to be hard after reading it not to believe that there's some truth to that after you're reading about yourself. And it's like, okay, now you know the avatar, and then the parameters of this world that we're in. Of course, we're in this duality of like far to this side, all the way to this side, everything in between exists. And it allows us really to have all these experiences. And that's really cool that we're allowed to have all of these different experiences. So it's like everybody can have their own desires and be after their own thing. That's why I think it's like important not to compare our businesses with other people, ourselves, our bodies, anything, because we were all gifted a particular avatar that we picked out. I think we picked it out. And the challenges that we went into, I kind of look at it like we're in the ultimate video game, life. And just the more I've learned about science and energy and everything, there seems to be like a foundational thing behind everything. And it's like the same formula behind it all. And then whenever you get to figure out, okay, you got these parameters you're in, you got this avatar that you're working with, and you understand those two, then the rest of the game is a little easier to deal with because you got to master yourself. And that's what it's really all about, is mastering your thoughts, mastering your emotions, mastering your body. All of that is the discipline, because without discipline, you don't really get freedom. They get taken away. The less discipline you have, the less freedoms you actually have. Like, for example, when I say that, as if you're not a disciplined person and you want to drink, you're probably going to get too drunk, get arrested for drunk driving. You're going to have your rights taken away. If you're somebody who overeats, you're going to have your freedom of going out on walks and playing with your kids somewhat taken away, or even going out and traveling at certain places. If you, different things, but if you're not disciplined in your own boundaries in your own relationships, then you're going to have your freedoms of actually being truly loved and respected, honored, and cherished. That's going to be taken away. So it's like, we have to understand like what we are, who we are, where we are, and then, what do we want to embody? And this is where clarity comes about, to know your boundaries, to know what's your ideal life? What do you really want? And then start embodying that. It's not about forcing it. And it's not about like creating, like Audra, I loved it how you're like, how do you, about creating the boundaries, which I think is so important, because whenever I first started with boundaries, I thought I needed to create all these boundaries. And really what I needed to do was understand myself and understand which direction I was going and quit getting distracted. And the boundaries were allowing me not to be distracted. And because like, if somebody mistreats me, my mind is off thinking about how they just mistreated me and how I would like to try to make this right. Or not like by getting them back, but by communication or something. But if you have good boundaries, you're not even putting yourself in those scenarios. Like if I have a good boundary, like example is I'm embodying that I know my worth, I know my value. So I'm not going to go to McDonald's and go apply. I don't have to tell people at McDonald's I'm not going to apply there because I think I'm better than the people, not them, but better than that job. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to embody that, you know, and like, if I know that I want a strong masculine provider as a man, I'm going to embody that. And guess what? When when scrub comes up, no, I'm thinking of the TLC song Scrubs. But if some guy comes up that can't provide, can't lead, can't plan a date, can't lead his own life at where he is in his life, then I would be, what would I be thinking to give that guy a chance to go on a date? He's not even that space to be what I want. Like, or if I want to get married and I'm gonna embody that I want to be a wife. I'm not gonna mess with men who don't want to get married. You know, like, so it's like, but you don't have to tell people that. You can just find out, oh, you do that? Well, I'm not interested. I don't have to keep entertaining that. And it's like not trying to make it too difficult or like or take it personally, or even when other people take it personally that you're like, oh, you're just not the right fit for me. That's not up to you to make them feel better either. If somebody takes the way that you, now I don't think that we should be mean to people, of course. We have to be accountable for our own energy that we bring, but we can't be accountable for everybody's feelings. We can't be accountable for how everybody thinks. And so it's like just being able to embody your boundaries and being okay with where you say no, you're going to be the villain for some people. Where you, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I don't like how you told me no when I wanted you to go with me here because I really needed somebody. It's like, look, I'm not your emotional support puppet. I have my own life too. Now I'm totally down for being there for you, but I can't be on call for you at every time. Because I gotta have me too. You know, like, and that shouldn't be a problem. But if somebody has a problem with it, then you get to decide, you know, what feels better. And it's not about avoidance. Boundaries should not be, and this is where the walls come in. Boundaries should not be about promoting avoidance. Because you're postponing a lesson. So I'd like to talk about relationships real quick. Do you guys have any other questions?
Nope.
So relationships are where really you get to see what you've truly embodied, where your weaknesses and your strengths really are. Your closest, most intimate relationships will show you this. And where you lack boundaries and all of that. And it's crazy because it's going to be right up in your face. You got to deal with, if you married somebody toxic, you got to deal with their toxicity, but like, what level do you deal with it? And when do you decide to walk away? When do you, are you okay with abandoning yourself? And how long are you going to be okay with that? And do you think there was a bigger purpose for you? And do you think abandoning yourself is you abandoning so many other people that needed you? And so I like to look at it like, because so I'll share with you guys my story. So maybe if you guys can relate, anybody on YouTube or anything, or you guys, I dated somebody for 13 years who ended up getting diagnosed as narcissistic personality disorder. And at the time, it was about 15 years ago now. So I didn't know anything about narcissism or narcissistic anything. So I've never heard of that word. So I was like, what does that even mean? And they said that there was like 9 traits and he hit every single one of them. They actually asked to study him because he was so narcissistic that they've never seen somebody that highly narcissistic before. And I was like, but what does narcissistic mean? Because I still didn't understand what this means. And they started telling me pretty much it's somebody who is afraid of shame and avoids shame at the highest level. So if they're accountable for hurting you, it actually hurts them to know their ego that they hurt you in a way, and they don't want to face it. So they'll twist it how you're kind of hurting them, so you feel the way they're feeling, so they can avoid the feeling. So it's like they're always trying to throw their bad feelings back at you. And they weren't like strong enough. They weren't taught like emotional regulation as a child, which a lot of us weren't, but they weren't taught regulation. They were taught shame. They were shamed a lot, or they were completely made into being the perfect child, whichever way they were done. And so whenever, so then they thought they could do no wrong. So if you tell them they're doing something that's hurting you or doing something wrong, it's almost like their brain can't process it. No, I'm perfect. My mom told me I'm perfect. And so, because it's usually, if it's a man narcissist, it's usually his mom that created it. So it's like, so it's like you're dealing with somebody who fundamentally is wired in a way that the fundamental part of accountability, the ability to change and do better, is completely missing. They just don't have it. So no matter what, you can never have a happy relationship with a narcissist. And I was like, and my counselor was trying to teach me this because we were actually going through marriage counseling. Because I told him, if we're going to get married, we're going to do marriage counseling. And he'd always said no to counseling except till then. And at this point, I was doing, I was already graduated. I was doing well. I already bought a house in cash. I had all this going on, and he wanted a piece of it. So he was down for marrying me. And he wanted to marry me from like the very beginning, because if you've met a narcissist, they are totally madly in with you. And so I and the whole story of how it happened explains why I had poor boundaries too. But anyway, so so it went from there, and it took me 3 years of a counselor, and I still kept on going to this counselor telling me I needed to run, I needed to go away, I needed to get out of this relationship because it was only going to continue to be toxic. But there was this part of me that was like, no, because he can also be the sweetest person, and he knows how to make me happy. He knows all these things because he's done it before, and I know that's there in him. And so there was this part of me that really wanted to get this first person back. And every once in a while, I would see a glimpse and it would give me hope. And that's all I needed was hope. Do you guys know the story about it was a scientific study where they put mice in water and they would let them drown. They would let them, they wanted to see how long they could go without drowning. And so then they did another one, but they took the mice out right when they started drowning. They took them out and then they put them back in. And so the mice actually lasted like way, way longer now that they had hope that they could probably be saved. It's the same thing that happens emotionally and mentally to people who go through narcissistic abuse. You get that glimpse of hope, so you actually last way longer than you should. And the problem is the whole time you're in like those kind of relationships, your boundaries are used against you. You're a bad guy. You're the villain. Because like if you love them, you'll accept everything they do because they just need someone to love them enough or to see how perfect they really are, like their mom used to tell them, you know, or to be their mom so then they can destroy you and finally get their mom off their back. But they don't realize that that isn't how they do it, by turning you into their mother, you know, whatever it is. So like if you've dealt with narcissistic relationship, you've probably been the mother, you've been everything. And it doesn't matter. The hoop is always another hoop. And there's always you didn't do enough because they're bottomless pits. But they're people too. I honestly think they're shells of people with demons in them. But I think that, you know, once you get so low in your energy that you do invite other energies in, because their eyes get black when they get really mad. It's weird. And so I went from that of not knowing how to create boundaries, and in fact, being punished for any boundaries. And so I didn't know really how to create boundaries. Like Audra said, creating boundaries. As a kid, I was punished for boundaries too. I think my mom may have had something going on there where if you were like, I'm not comfortable with that, you would get slapped so hard. And you just would be physically abused for even speaking up or having any kind of boundaries or even saying you want water. So it wasn't like, what do you mean by the black eyes? Oh, so if anybody's been in a narcissistic relationship and has dealt with a narcissist that gets extremely upset, their eyes turn black. So after I dated this guy, it took me 3 years. And we were together for 13 years. The crazy thing about narcissistic relationship, and this is why I don't believe just because somebody's been in a long-term relationship, they were in a good relationship or a healthy one. Actually, I find it easy to be in a relationship. I find it difficult to be straight, to be single. And I find it difficult to be in a healthy relationship at times. Now I don't. I actually have changed my beliefs about that. But but most people aren't in healthy relationships. They're in relationships they've settled and they're scared to be alone, or they're so entangled with the other person they don't know how to get out. But hey Erica. So like then I went into I only took like a month break, and for me it's easy to get back into another relationship. So like another boyfriend comes along. Guess what? I had to learn my lessons with the previous narcissist. So guess what? I got worse. I got a psychopath. Tested psychopath. You know, psychopaths are also narcissists, but not every narcissist is a psychopath. You talk about thinking narcissists are evil, psychopaths make narcissists look like kids. Just sad kids. It doesn't even make them look evil in any way. A psychopath will show you a whole nother level. And this is when I actually started learning boundaries. They will destroy you. And he did everything he could to try to destroy me in so many different ways. And still, if he could, he tries. They don't ever give up. Narcissists will give up. They'll discard you and they'll be done and they'll move on to the next one. A psychopath will never be done with you. Especially if you were one of their favorite supplies. Now, I want to say, well, I didn't preface, but I want to say this. People with these kind of personality disorders don't go after people because they're weak. The weak one is the one with the disorder. They tend to go for the strong ones, the happy ones, the ones with a bunch of light in them, the ones that have high empathy and highly forgiving and adaptive, that have the ability to put up with their crap, which is not everybody. It takes a strong person to be able to do that. Most people would be out within the first few weeks if they dealt with any of that. But some of us have already been prepped, I guess, for that kind of behavior. So we're used to it. It's familiar to us. And we're just used to being the people pleaser and the peacekeeper. And so when you're used to being this way, I'm saying all this to get to the boundaries, you do have to create boundaries. You don't know how to embody them yet. You don't even really know yourself, because for the longest time, the people closest to you that should have been loving you and protecting you were the very ones tearing you apart and feeding you toxicity. And like, oh, you think you're this, you think you're that. Oh yeah, you're not. And like, you're just hearing crap like that over and over. And the crazy thing is, after so much time, you just want to give up. You're like, maybe I am all this stuff. I don't know. And you start getting super, super confused about everything. And then if you start finding out about their lives from 10 years ago, then your whole world starts to, like, you're like, what? You've been cheating on me the whole time? I've never met a narcissist who does not cheat, no matter what. They all cheat. Even the ones that I was like, no, there was no way he ever cheated on me. 8 years out of the relationship, after being with him for 13 years, find out, yeah, he was cheating on me the whole time. And I thought there was no way, because he was so in love with me. But I never had the time. Like, when did he do it? You know, like, it doesn't matter. They could be living with you and they will be doing it. And so, like, and I didn't believe any of that. But it
I
was
don't agree with that.
huh? What? Okay. So I actually had to learn all of this through going through like a fire. Like, all of these pieces of my people pleasing, of my peacekeeping, almost had to get burnt down. I got so tired of it. I got angry. I went from fawning, which I don't know if anybody understands what fawning is, but that's whenever you just are compliant with the abuser because it's almost easier to keep the peace than to actually confront their behavior or to hold them accountable because they're not going to be held accountable in the first place anyways. And all hell is going to break loose if you do that. So it's almost better to fawn, and just be like, it's okay. No problem here. And then like act like nothing happened and then just sweep it under the rug because if you bring it up again, well, why are you such a fucking problem? You know? Yeah, yeah, I felt like a dark night of the soul, I'll tell you that. Man. Yeah, so I went through it felt like a burning process. I felt like I was like not sure what was me, what wasn't me. Didn't know like what do I really like? What foods do I actually like? What restaurants would I go to if I was by myself? What shows would I watch? What TV, what radio stations would I listen to? What would I actually be talking about if somebody was okay with listening to what I want to talk about? Because it was always around what they wanted that I didn't realize I'd lost myself. I didn't even know what songs I liked anymore. It was just always what they wanted to listen to, what they wanted to watch, what they wanted to eat, when they wanted to eat it. You know, like it was always that. So I never got to think about myself. And anytime I would think about myself or even buy myself my own shirt with my own money, he would get so upset with me. And it was like I would be punished again for taking care of me or looking out for me or doing anything for me. And so it was like really, really bad because guys, if y'all had seen me back in the day, I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. I wasn't allowed to wear fitting clothes. I wasn't allowed to do a lot of things. And you would think you're an adult. How are you not allowed to do that? I didn't know that I could say no. I grew up with a very controlling mom. And that's the crazy part is like you have to figure yourself out. You've got to go through this thing of like, now all this stuff is going on. And some people are like, oh my God, I got to create boundaries. I was creating boundaries and I was creating them all wrong. You can't create a boundary with a narcissist by saying, don't do that. You like, I had to do it all wrong to find out how to do it right. But I was going through this whole, yeah, it did feel like a dark night of the soul because I'm trying to stand up for myself. I'm getting hell for it. I was confused and then I was trying to stand up for myself outside of my relationship, noticing that I was a doormat everywhere and I was giving way too much everywhere and not really getting anything in reciprocation. And I was like, no wonder I'm so drained. I'm not even allowing myself to be fed by anything. And then whenever somebody wants to give me something, I'm so hyper vigilant and so untrusting that I'm not even allowing myself to receive. Because now I'm like, what are you trying to get from me? Because all these crazy people around me want something from me. You must want something from me too. And I was in a bad space. And so like to make these boundaries, what I realized after having all these people was you have to know who you are. Like the simple stuff. Like, what do you like? What do you not like? I had to get really curious with myself. And then when you get clarity of who you are, you know who you're protecting. And boundaries are protecting and honoring yourself, not protecting yourself from other people. It's protecting your purpose, your alignment, protecting your heart, not out of fear, but knowing how important it is. How did I get myself out of this cycle? I got tired of my own shit. I can say it was the other person, but by the time I was ready to get out, I was already in reactive abuse. I was yelling back. I was, you know, when they would get out of the car, because sometimes it would be like a kidnapping situation. They would get out of the car, I would get in the front seat and I'd just drive off, you know, like I was in the middle of the toxicity and I was like, I am not this person. What is going on? Like, this is not who I am. But I'm like, but it must be because it's coming out of me. But it was like I was in a serious like self-protection space. And it was like, so, I was so triggered by everything around me because I was in so much pain. And I got tired of being in pain and like feeling so alone, so unseen. So like, I didn't feel like I mattered. And I was so tired of all of that. So I got tired of it. That's how I got out of it. So first I had to get tired of it. And then I had to look at, what can I do? What can I do to change this? Because the longer I stay, the more I destroy myself, the more I am killing my own soul. I know she's still in there somewhere, but I'm not feeling her anymore. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like I've become somebody I'm not. And so then I had to get curious. Who am I? What do I like? And I would get myself like, it was hard to get out of the relationships. I'll tell you that. Like they have this hook going that just, oh man. If a woman can get out of a narcissistic relationship that seriously has like the empathy, forgiving and all that stuff, the first time that she leaves, I want to talk to her. But it was so I kept on like feeling like I was going back to the same thing I was healing from at the same time. And that's when I realized, because I went outside of that first relationship and I got into another one, is that you can change the person, but you're not going to change the lesson. And that's why I don't believe in avoiding people or even leaving people when when it feels forced. And some people are like, why don't you just leave if it's that bad? Because I'll leave this one and I'll go right back into another one just like this because I didn't learn my lesson. And so I'm going to learn my lesson here. So when I leave, I don't feel any residue. I can leave and be like, okay, it's all good. So actually the last, so the narcissistic one did feel like I finally was ready to go. And then, so that's what confused me, is getting into the next one. That was a lot worse, was how did I get into this? And it was because I still wasn't loving myself. I still wasn't honoring myself. I wasn't speaking up. I wasn't being vulnerable. And he was there to show me all of that. Now looking back at these, I'm not mad at those people. They were my greatest teachers. I needed to get that crap burnt off of me. I had to get, I call it Fred, but you know, like you go through the life, it's kind of like going through a forest and picking up some ticks and fleas and giving them names and just saying, yeah, oh, that's Fred. It's like part of me now. When it's really just a tick, just take it off, let Fred go. And so I'm not somebody who's like cops out and just says, well, this is just the way I am. Fred came along on the ride of life, so now I got a tick on my shoulder. No, I'm gonna let Fred go. And so I had to learn how to let go of the things that was making me stay. And that was my thoughts of, maybe I am what he says, like maybe I'm not, nobody will want me. Maybe you know, I do nobody would want a woman who wants her own business. You know, like nobody's gonna want a woman who has 2 baby daddies, all this stuff all this kind of stuff. And nobody's gonna want a woman in her 40s. I get that too. All this stuff. And it's like, I had to finally be like, I don't care. I don't want to be with a person who wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to be with a person who wouldn't want me. And I had to get to this whole, I'm gonna F what you think about this or that or me or anybody else. So I had to get into the stage of like getting tired of it all, like getting upset, getting angry with it, and then being like, I just don't want this anymore. Like my soul wants to come out. It wants to be seen. It wants to shine, and it wants to be seen for what it is, not for what you want to project on me. All your dirtiness, you can just get away with all that, you know, because we all have our light and we all have our dark. And they're not meant to be something that's separated, but integrated. It's not meant to be shamed. And all they knew was shame. So that's all they express. And so like, I was like, this isn't me. This isn't what I want anymore. And I had to get clear on who I was, get curious and get clear on what I wanted. And I had to keep writing that stuff down. I had to keep on doing it, keep on going over it. And reading more books about understanding the mind, the emotions, because I mean, I'm a woman, so I got emotions. And I'm like, I want to understand all of this because when I love somebody, I love hard and I don't give up and I'm very loyal. So I'm like, I'm there for you and I'm there to want to be the best woman ever that I can be and all that kind of stuff. And so like doing all of that, knowing that, I'm like, I deserve better because I deserve somebody who would think like I do. And actually, it was towards the end of the relationships too. I started being more vulnerable about what I needed, what I wanted, what my problems were. They honestly didn't care. They never responded in a way that was loving. Um, it was always like acting like I was too needy at that time because I'm like, I'm hungry. Oh my God, you're hungry again. Like it wouldn't be like, oh, let's get something to eat, something simple, or like, hey, I have to use the restroom. Can we stop at the gas station? Oh my God. Like any of that, I would never date another man who acts like that, especially over small stuff. If you're that emotional as a man, you're not going to be able to handle my emotions. You can't even handle your own, like I'm good. And so, uh, I started paying attention to how they actually cared for me. And then I was like looking at how I cared for them and realized this is serious disconnect between the two. And how if they truly loved me like I love them, then why are they able to treat me like that? Why don't they consider me like I consider them? So I just started asking myself these questions to be like, oh my God, and then come up with the realization they don't love me. They like what they get from me. They like the way I make them feel. They like my resources. They don't like me. And they want to be me. It seemed like they wanted to be me. And I was just like, wow, no, I can't do this anymore. So it was a combination of stuff, guys. It was a combination of being um, tired of it all, angry with it all, realizing I wasn't who I wanted to be anymore. Um, Realizing like a part of my soul seemed like it was dying. Uh, like, and realizing that life has so much to offer, and I was missing out on it by creating my own prison because I couldn't stand up and honor myself. And I realized until I start honoring myself, no one else is going to do that. So then I started doing it, and oh my God, talk about upsetting a narcissist. Accountability and holding high boundaries for yourself. Well, man, but you also have to be careful when you start embodying certain boundaries around toxic people because sometimes they can get physical. In my experience, that is what's happened. You'll get kidnapped. You'll be stuck in a room for hours or even days and with no phone and like all kinds of stuff happens. Um, but you get to decide like after that, like, do I get a protective order on them? Probably gonna do that, or like do what you need to do to protect yourself. And not out of a place of fear, but honoring yourself and understanding how important you are. And I had to go from this really selfless person to becoming more selfish. And I actually in the relationship, I was being called selfish quite a bit towards the end. And every time I would say, thank you. I worked hard to get here. And he hated that. And so eventually what happens when you start not becoming their favorite supply, they find other supplies. So they're always cheating on you, but they'll just make it more obvious when you start holding yourself in higher boundaries and standards. And they'll act like it's your fault that they're doing everything they're doing, of course, because they always do. And then you have to like be like ready to go, and then even if you aren't and you want to go back again for some reason, because they've tried all these other women, they don't you're still the best. They always say that, by the way. But it's just a way to still have easy access to you because you were convenient for them. But it was just a lot of realization. I'm probably talked way too much on that, but it was a lot of realization, a lot of awareness on my part and what I was doing, how I was calling it in. Because like I could have blamed them and been like, oh, I dated a narcissist and this is what's happened to me. No, I attracted that because I have a mission in this world that's huge. And I had to go through this stuff, get this stuff burnt off of me so that I can shine my light the way it needed to be shined. And these people needed to do it for me. And that's fine. And I appreciate that. I sending love, sending gratitude, you know, everybody's way, because if it wasn't for them, I would probably be still some selfless little girl behind a computer working really hard, you know, for $50,000 a year, and just doing a regular life like everybody else, you know, and it was fine with me. I was living just fine. I could have settled for that. I mean, if you looked at it on the outside, I looked at it like I was doing quite well, but I was miserable on the inside. Oh, how do I handle it? I don't. No. So my mother, I quit talking to her when I was 26. And I don't know, you know, I don't mind sharing my stories. I just don't want to share too much, like where it sounds crazy, but it is kind of crazy. So my mom was very physically abusive growing up. And so I let her live with me when I was about 19, and I had to kick her out. And so then I gave her money to get her own place. And I'm 19 years old, pregnant. I needed my mom. My mom, she needed me. And so I was there for her. And if you see, I was raised to be there for everybody else and be everybody else's emotional support puppet. And um, so I quit talking to her because of the reason I had to kick her out. I still gave her money so she could go find another place, but I did quit talking to her for a few years. And then when I hit 26, she wanted to come back around in my life again. Well, I go out to her house. And I was also like Cinderella growing up, and I'll try to keep this short. So I get to her house. Haven't seen her in like 7 years. Immediately she opens up the door and she points out how she's taped all the walls off for me so I could paint her house. This was for her to see her grandkids for the first time and to see me. And I'm like, you want me to paint your house the first time we've seen each other in 7 years, and that's what you bring up? And she was like, yes. And look, I even have the gardening stuff for you to do too when you get done with that. And I was like, for me to do? And she was like, yeah. And she goes, isn't this awesome? My house is going to look so good. And I'm like, yeah, when you do it or you pay someone else to do it, but I'm here to visit. And she was like, excuse me? And I had forgot how much my mom was not okay with you telling her how it's going to be. And she's like, excuse me? And she hasn't even invited me in yet. And so I was like, can I come in? So then she wants me to move furniture from one room to the other. And then she wanted me to clean out the refrigerator and then do the dishes. And I was like, girl, I just got in the house. I just took a step in. I haven't even took 2 steps in your house yet. And she goes, well, if you want to eat in this house, then you're going to do my dishes and clean the refrigerator. And I was like, well, what do you guys want to eat? I'll go and get something and pick it up for everybody. Okay. And she was like huffing and puffing at this point because she was so mad now that I've told her I'm not doing all this stuff that she's wanting me to do. And so I come back, get some food. And then when I come back, I'm eating with my brother, and so the one who passed away about 2 years ago. So I'm eating with him, and my mom comes up, and my mom hit me a lot as a little kid, and usually would blindside me. It was always a really crazy shot she would take on me, and it was completely unexpected every time. My mom was just awful. So like so I'm like eating, not expecting anything, but this was pretty normal for my life. And she comes up behind and she just tries to whack the hell out of my face. And I caught her arm. And towards the end, when I was about 16, 17, I started catching her hands when she would try to hit me. And she hated it because I could overpower her, so she couldn't do everything she used to do. And so I grabbed her hand, and then she tried to hit me with her other hand. And I turned around, and the way I turned around, I had to hold both of her hands. And I was like, you're not going to hit me. You can speak to me. What is going on, and what are you upset about now? And she was like, you're evil. And she's just shaking and all red, calling me evil. And I was like, okay, what am I evil about? Not cleaning your refrigerator and not cleaning the dishes and getting food instead? Is that what you're mad about? You didn't get your way? And she's like, you're evil. Get out. And so was like, okay, we'll get out. And so I'm getting my kids, and then she comes up and she hits me, again, blindsides me, and then gets my arm and starts beating my head into the granite countertop. I am trying to prevent her doing that. So she breaks my neck. I fall down onto the floor and she starts ripping my hair out in large chunks in front of my children, does all of this. My kids have never been traumatized. My mother traumatized my children. My daughter had nightmares for 3 years of me falling because my mom broke my neck and then ripping my hair out, and how much hair she had ripped out really traumatized my daughter. And my son didn't understand, my daughter didn't understand, so we left, and they were like, why did she do that? No, it didn't even end there. She's seriously trying to kill me. She did kill my brother 2 years ago, but so she's trying to kill me. And I was like, this woman's gonna kill me if I let her. If I don't really fight. So I fought back. I didn't want to hit my mom. I didn't want to fight back, but I had to for my life. And so I get up, get out of there. I can't even believe I was able to walk. The chiropractor was really surprised when they saw my neck. But I go and I get out of there, try to get my kids. My kids are in such shock, they're not moving. And I had to run really quick to get out of there. And so I'm like, kids, come on. And so she shuts the door and she goes, these are my kids now. My mom's psycho, guys, no joke. And so and this is child's play compared to what my mom is able to do. So I didn't talk to her for 11 years. Cops, I had to call the cops. I had to get my kids out. They told her she can't just keep my kids. And so I got my kids. My kids are totally freaked out because this was my first time to meet my mom. And they were like, who is this crazy woman? Nothing had even happened, guys. This is what these kind of relationships are like with a narcissist or a psychopath. You just don't comply with them. You're not obedient to them, and you are useless. You are trash. They will kill you if they need to. Like this, well, not all of them, but that's how she was. And so, and just she was also abused as a kid. So she had her own stuff and she never dealt with it. And so this is why it's so important for us to deal with our stuff. I know I'm kind of smiling, laughing. I'm just like, it was so over the top crazy to even talk about it. So I didn't talk to her for 11 years, rightfully so, I would say. The whole time she told my entire family how it was this evil, awful person that came over and beat her up. When my family would call me and tell me that, just go off on me, I'd be like, if y'all believe that, that's your problem. If you want to ask me questions, I'm here for it. And I cut off my entire mom's side of the family because nobody ever asked me what happened. And so, and when I tried telling them, they wouldn't listen to me. So I was like, I'm not going to have this. And they all know who I am as a person. I'm not going to have this. And it was just my mom's sisters. And so, so I felt really alone. And then I got back and had my daughter, my latest daughter, and my mom wanted to come back into my life. Now this had been 11 years. She seemed more mature. She'd been talking to my aunt saying how much she really wanted to be in my life. And I was like, guys, she just could call me. She has my phone number. She just is playing off y'all's sympathy because she's freaking narcissist. And y'all are giving it. So she's gonna feed for it. And because I look at them like feeders on that kind of stuff. And so so I start talking to her again, start hanging out with her again. I actually moved in with her after COVID happened with my daughter. That woman, she held it together for a little while, but the moment she did her crap, I left, and I haven't talked to her since. So the way that so if someone is physically dangerous to you, I don't think you need to be in a relationship or even keep on trying that with them. After she killed my brother and got away with it and told me how she was going to get away with it and told me how she was going to do it too before she did it, I just didn't believe she would actually do it. And then she did it. And I feel kind of guilty because I didn't do anything about knowing ahead of time, but you didn't know when she was going to do it. I really didn't think she was going to. But she, after she did that, I don't need to be around her at all. Like, there is seriously something broken with certain people. And unfortunately, it was with my mother. But I feel bad for her because she'll never be happy. And I have the accountability to be able to be happy. And so that is awesome. But I pray for her. And I know I was put into that family for a reason, the way I was treated, the whole time growing up, all the way up to now. Like, I went through some crap. And oh, just give me a second. Thank you, Dina. Dina said your brother's death is not your fault. And I know that. Thank you. Still a tender spot. But when it comes to people like my mom, I don't cry for her anymore. Like, I've cried all that out. Um, I those are the pissers that I was talking about. You have to put them in an outside lane so that you can still try to love them. Because some people just do awful things. And I could try to make sense of it. I always try to make sense of what my mom was doing and why she was doing certain things as a kid. And I couldn't like make logical sense, but I could make emotional sense that she was just so hurt that she didn't know anything besides pain. And so that's the only thing she could share too. And so, yeah, you don't have to continue. Audra said, you don't have to continue to attempt to pet an injured dog. It will only bite you. And I actually did like a lot of different things to try to heal, like psychedelic retreats and all this stuff. And I actually had this vision in one where I was a butterfly and this worm comes up and rips off one of my wings. And I followed it around asking, why did you rip my wing off? And then it rips off the other wing. And I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? And then I followed it around asking why I ripped off my wing and wanting both my wings back. And it came up and started trying to tear apart my torso. And I was like, oh my God, what is wrong with you? And then I got out of that, the vision comes out and says, like, it just comes over and says, quit following around the people willing to tear you apart. Because you're only going to find out they're going to keep tearing you apart. So it's like, wow. So it's really significant. And hurt people. And that's what it is that you don't need to keep following around those people. You don't have to prove that you're strong. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to show that you're happy. None of that matters. It's about just being happy with yourself and like, realizing that you can't always make sense of everybody and what they do, but you can do that for yourself. And this is why I say that little kid, put them on your mirror and in the bathroom and have that little kid. And remember, you are now responsible for that little kid having their dreams. You're now responsible for that kid's health and their happiness, their relationships, who they choose, where they choose to be at. Yeah, you're responsible for that little kid now because that little kid is still in you. It's still there. And they need to be taken care of now. And so, like, that's what this is about. It's loving yourself and honoring yourself like the way that you should have been the whole time. And some of us, we had that experience, some of us didn't. But what I like about all of that is that even though like sounds really awful to have gone through that stuff, is that I understand other people's suffering. I understand when somebody is hurting, but now I don't abandon myself to love or understand other people. And I find that to be such a strong superpower to have now. And I can see through BS so quickly now. Like I couldn't previously, like people that just deal with normal lives, they'll be talking about stuff. I'm like, oh, red flag. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that person never answered one of your questions. And they're like, oh, they didn't. I'm like, you're dealing with a manipulator, be careful. And they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, ask him this. And then and it's like these little things, like little subtle things that most people oversee. I see it so strongly now. How did you begin the healing process and begin loving yourself? That's a great question, Erica. I had to get curious about myself at first, because when it first started and I got curious about myself, I didn't like myself. I was in the reactive abuse stage. So I seemed like I was abusive because now I'm yelling. I'm speeding off. I don't really throw stuff, but it was just like different things like that. Like I slapped him, like just different stuff. And I didn't like who I was. And so I actually, the very first thing I did, I took a journal and I started out writing down all the good stuff that I could remember about myself. And I was like, and I looked at it and I got really sad because it was all how I could produce. And I was like, I don't know myself. And so then that's when I got curious. And I was like, I only know how I can perform. I don't know who I really am. And so I got to just start exploring myself. I kind of acted like I was dating myself in a way. So I was asking myself questions like, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite show? What's your favorite music? You know, and started just really getting to know myself. And then what do I really like doing? Because I was like, I don't even know what I like doing. And so it was bad because I've been in relationships my whole life. So I was just like, I don't know. And so it's just getting to know myself, dating myself, asking myself questions that, you know, how they'll have these dating things out there. They're like, ask yourself these 32 questions to get to know someone else. I'm like, why don't you just ask that about yourself? You know, so I would use those dating things for myself. And then I saw a picture of myself as a kid, and then it reminded me of how I'm responsible for her now. And so it was just like little things. And I I did hypnotherapy, psychedelics, I did counseling, I did books. But you want to know what really, out of everything that I did, what actually did it? If y'all can guess, like, what do you think what really actually began my healing process out of everything I did? I stopped blaming. Yeah, I reconnected. I love that, Audra. I reconnected with myself and I stopped blaming. I took 100% accountability for everywhere I was, everything I was doing, who I was talking to, all of that. Oh yeah, Erica, I pray all the time. You know, what's crazy is I pray all the time. Yeah, I forget to bring that up because I do it all the time. I don't even think about like that being something additional. Throughout it all, God was the one that I just kept on praying to and reaching out to. And then so my thing was, it was a radical self-accountability. I had to quit being the victim. I had to quit like letting other people be victims around me either. Like I didn't want to be around the victim mentality anymore. And so like I had to go straight to radical accountability. I wanted to hang out with more people who were disciplined. So I started going to networking events and I started hanging out with people who were getting shit done. Not just me that was getting it done, but other people too. And I was noticing people who were other accountable people and getting around that where people are not only accountable, but they're also loving. And so being around and loving myself and honoring myself while I was doing all of that was what really did it. Because I could have stayed a victim. And I don't think no matter how much counseling, books, psychedelics, all that I did, I would not have, and I only did 2 psychedelic retreats, which I don't find anything wrong with them. I think they can be very healing. Actually, it was very, very healing, but really what it was, and it was actually the psychedelic retreats that sparked me to take more self accountability. Quit being the victim, quit chasing the worm that's ripping me in pieces. And I had some profound things that came through on those, if you guys ever want to hear those stories, but it was the accountability. Of course, prayer, reconnecting with myself, understanding how important we are. Do y'all know how important you are? Like, do y'all really know how important you are? Your light is meant to heal so many people, and you're here to do that. Like, even without you even knowing, just you being you. All of you guys are so important. Everybody is. Everybody. Even the evil people, they have their role to play too. We're all so important. Okay, well, it is 2 o'clock. So if you guys want to hear the psychedelic thing, do you want to hear it now or do you want to do it some other time? Because anybody who doesn't care to hear it, you can jump off. It'll be about another 5-10 minutes. Oh my God, guys. I honestly feel like God was there during the whole thing. I feel like God taught to me. Okay, now, all right. Okay. So I'll be, I was kind of scared to do it was a shroom retreat. And I went with one of my mentors. He does Unfuck Your Mindset is what his group is called. And I was actually introduced to him because we talk about a lot of the same stuff. And actually we work together now, but, he was like, hey, Mitzi, you want to go to this retreat with us? And we're gonna have a shaman there. It's about handling like past traumas. It isn't like a recreational thing. It was a healing thing. And I was like, okay, but I was scared because to be honest, I did some shrooms in high school, like 2 or 3 times, but that was it. Nothing significant. And so I'd never really tripped or done any of that. So I was kind of like off shrooms or anything. So I was scared. And so I'm like, I don't know. But I did it. So we get there, we take them, we do a meditation, and then we set our intentions, which mine was to get rid of past traumas because I'd been working on it for a while, but realized I was still self-sabotaging. And I was like, I know all this stuff, but why am I still self-sabotaging? What is unconscious that I would like to bring conscious so I can take care of that? And I was kind of worried what would come out. Just because the abuse I've dealt with as a child, I was like, oh, and even as an adult, I'm like, okay. So I went upstairs in my room after our meditation. And right then and there, I sit on the bed, and then all of a sudden, I'm in a white room. And this white room, I'm sitting in a chair, and there's brown boulders all around me. And at first it was a little scary, and I was like, okay, I'm here for it. Let's face it. What are these round boulders? Let's go. And I lean back like this in the chair, and all of a sudden this wind comes over me and blows over my head and blows all the boulders out of the room. And it says, you made it all up. And I was like, because I wanted to see, like, get past my traumas. And it said, you made it all up. And I was like, I didn't make up my traumas. Like, I was there. It happened. And it said, no, you don't understand what you are. Open your eyes. And I was like, okay, I thought my eyes were open. Okay, so I opened my eyes, and now I'm back in the room, and there's code everywhere. I'm seeing shapes and symbols all connected everywhere. And I'm like, what is going on? And then it said, open up a door. And there was no doors in front of me. I was like, there's no doors. And it said, open up a door. I was like, there's no door. It was like, open up a door. I'm like, so I pretend to open up a door, and it actually opens. And it's like the 1950s, and it's like a dance thing. And I've always been in the 1950s. And if you've ever hung out with me, I'm a really fun person. Like, and so so I'm in this dance, and so it said jump in. So I jumped in, and I'm a different person. And but I'm dancing, I'm having a great time. And it said, and then I remembered I was this avatar. And for some reason, I'm thinking of myself as an avatar in this shroom journey. And I'd never thought of myself as an avatar before. So it's kind of weird that that was the word coming up for me. But it was like, oh, you're this avatar, jump back into yourself. So I jumped back into myself, and it said, open up another door. And I was like, okay, it's 1920s. And I've always been into the 1920s. And I was like, oh, cool. It's another dance thing going on. I was like, ah, yeah. So I jump in. I'm somebody else having fun. And then I remember I was this entity, came back and said, open up another door. So I did. It was like the 1700s. It was war. And I don't like to watch war. I don't like how that we hurt each other. It really hurts my heart that we're able to do that to each other. So I don't like to watch that stuff. And so I'm like, of all things, jumping in a war. And I was a man. And there are these people being blown up and shot all around me, being killed. It's raining, it's muddy, and there's a musket. And then all of a sudden, this thing says, stop judging and just observe. And then all of a sudden, everything became beautiful. Men being blown up, men being shot. It was just beautiful. And I was like, why is this so beautiful all of a sudden? And it said, because you quit judging. And I'm like, I felt like I was seeing through God's eyes. And I'm like, man, if this is how God sees things, then what we think is right and wrong is not even on the same level. And I said, just be, just observe. And so like I started just checking out the musket, just enjoying my time there. And ironically, it was a really good time after I quit judging. And it was just beautiful, everything that was going on. It was really weird. And so I jumped back, like really with a whole different perception on all of this. And then it said jump again. So I just opened up a door above me and I jump, and then I get scared. So I come back and I can't remember anything about that time, but I remember thinking, I think I almost forgot who I am and wasn't going to jump back. And it said, you still don't understand what you are. And I was like, what are you trying to show me? And so then it takes me back, and I'm like, it's dark, and then it's like a light, like a hot pink, and then dark again. And then it shows me this thing that looks like a brain, but like it looks like neurons that would go in a brain, shaped like a brain. It said, this is all you are. And it zooms in to a little piece of a neuron. I wasn't even a whole neuron. I was just a little piece of a neuron. And there was a pink pulse going over it like every second. And it said, you see that pulse? And I'm like, yeah. And it said, that's your lifetime. That's it. That's all your lifetimes right there. And I was like, what? And it said, and this is all you are. And it said, you are just a vessel with the energy of all it is flowing through you. And that's all you were ever meant to be. You were gifted an experience. You could have just been an electric wire. And you're taking this experience too seriously. Enjoy yourself. It was here for you. It was gifted for you. And I was like, and it said, because of the energy of all that is flowing through you, you have access to everything there is. You just don't know how to access it yet. And I'm like, okay. And so then, and then I was like, well, what happens if you don't let the flow go through you? It said, you get sick. You get a virus. And I was like, oh. And it said, and I said, so if you continue to not let it go flow through you after you get sick, what happens? And it said, you die. You get recycled is actually what it said. It didn't say die. You get recycled a little further down. And I'm like, what? Okay. And it said, your purpose is to flow and to allow the energy to flow through you. That's all your purpose is. You were gifted this experience. Your purpose is not the experience. It's to let the flow through you. And I'm like, wow. And it's like, if you don't let the flow through you, everything after you can't get the flow either. So you're hurting more than just yourself when you don't let yourself flow. And I was like, oh, and it's like, because we're all interconnected. And that's why we have to be eliminated so we don't continue to hurt those around us and we get sick and we die. So that we can continue to grow and understand. And so like, then my mentor walks in, and my mentor at the time even had a little extra weight on himself and was kind of not always the best posture. But he comes in and opens up the door, and all of a sudden he's in great posture. And he checks on me. He goes, Mitzi, you okay? And I was like, yeah. And I'm starting to see reality more for what it is. And he's wearing armor though, and he's got a coat on him. And then he's got all these codes circling around him in multiple ways. And I was like, what is that? And it said, oh, you all have a code. That's how we find you when you're not in your body. And I'm like, what? When you become the fabric of all that is, that's how you're found, is through your code. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I was like, what are all the other codes circling around them though? And they said, oh, because you are, others are. So because you are a fractal of God with the energy of all that is, you are also a God in your own right, and other universes exist because of you. So you saw all the other universes that exist because he exists. And it said, your state of being is more important than just for yourself, but for all of the worlds that exist because of you. They're all based off your state of being. And I was like, what? And so then that made it even more important for me to care about me. And so I'm like, okay. So I get up and there was this girl in the closet the whole time. And she opens up the door and she's eating an apple. And I was like, what? And I'm seeing code still. Everything's still in code. And so like I circled around in code and all that. And I'm seeing her code and I'm seeing the code of the apple and she's just ingesting code. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't seem like we would need to eat. And I said, you don't, you would just starve to death if you didn't. So, because you think you need to. So let's keep moving. And I'm like, no, I want to ask some questions on that. And it was like, I have something else to show you. So it told me to go downstairs. So I went downstairs and everybody's wearing armor with code on it, with all these codes circling around them. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so crazy. And they're all talking about their experiences and they tried to talk to me. And I said, I'm still in it. Give me a second, guys, but I'm still in it. And they're like, okay. So then they were talking about all that stuff and it said, they're talking about money, they're talking about relationships. And it said, why do y'all chase money? Why do y'all chase relationships? And I'm like, I don't know. And it said, because I mean, I'm over here like, I'm sure it's a rhetorical question, so I'm gonna wait for the answer. And so it said, because you don't need to chase anything. You have the energy of all that is flowing through you. Do you chase your nose? And I'm like, no. And it said, because it's part of you. You shouldn't chase anything. It's all part of you. All you have to do is ask and believe and you can have it. And it's like, you guys make it so much more complicated than that. And that's all there is to it. If you could just allow the flow to go through you, because all that exists right now is this moment. And that's why you made it all up. And it circled back around. I was like, what? So it said you had to bring up the past into this moment for your trauma to exist. Because it doesn't exist unless you do that. So you made it up. It doesn't exist in this moment unless you bring it to this moment. You brought it up. You made it up for it to exist in this moment. You should have let it go. It was never meant to be brought into this moment. It was meant to be experienced and let it flow through you. And that was it. So you made it all up. And I was like, oh my God. So it was like trying to show me that we're just this vessel with the energy of all that is. And we were gifted an experience that we've just been taken way too seriously. And we have the access to everything that we want. So why are we playing the way we're playing? It's because we're confused. We didn't know how to play. And so like that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And that was pretty significant in my healing too. So having that, I realized I was bringing my traumas from the past into the present moment. I am making it up. I am in control of what I allow it to be in this moment. And the things that I can't control, can I come to grace with it? You know, so it was like a process of understanding all of that and getting deeper and deeper. So what do you guys, y'all have any questions or anything about that?
No. How can I ask a question about that? That was really deep.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty insane, but it was something that I would say like after that moment, it was really hard to think of things any other way. It was like it, and they say that shrooms immediately rewire your brain. They do neurogenesis right away. So they start rewiring right. And so this is why depression and all that stuff goes away for like 2 years or a year after doing this stuff. It works better than depression medicine. And because it starts rewiring with what it's showing you too. So after that, it was like, anytime I'm starting to think about the past or feel sad about it, I understand that the emotion comes up, feel it, but don't be thinking about it, keeping the feeling going. Just let the emotion pass. And so it's like, and that's why I tell you guys, like, the emotion, feel it. But also, process it, but don't keep the thought loop going to keep that feeling going, especially if it's toxic, a negative, like, angry or uh, fire, Have you ever done it again? Actually, Erica, I had a lot of other healing things before that too. Like, guys, I had a lot that I had to get past. But have I ever done it again? I did do it one more time. So I did ayahuasca 6 months after that. This is stuff that you don't do back to back to back. You actually want to give yourself some time. Some people microdose, but if you microdose, make sure you give yourself some time off on that too. But 6 months later, I did ayahuasca. And so I still felt like there was still some trauma there. So I did ayahuasca, which shrooms are like considered the grandmother, and ayahuasca is like the great grandmother. And so it's like even more spiritual. And I was scared to do ayahuasca because of the puking. I never puked. But everybody else was around me. So I did ayahuasca. Oh my God, that one went to a whole nother level. And I get picked up. It said, Mitzi, we've already been here. And I was like, what? It picked up from my shroom trip. And then showed me how I'm an interdimensional being and how like much unserious everything is and how much more connected things are than I even realized before with the shroom trip. And how I don't have to like see things in a certain way. And it was just really interesting. And then I think 6 months later, I did do another shroom trip. I did not do as much as the first one. So it was a light trip. And that's where I was the butterfly with the worm that was pulling pieces of me off. So even though I was willing to let go of trauma, one of my problems, guys, and I think this is something that some people do, is you think that you've healed enough and you've let go of your trauma that you can go back to past pain. Or, maybe you start rewriting the story of how somebody used to be, and then they start coming around acting like they've changed again, and you start talking to somebody, and then you realize, oh wow, I am not, I still don't need to be around this. I still don't need to be around my family, or I still don't need, because I did that. I got back around my mom for a minute. And yeah, so that's so it's like thinking that you're strong enough to deal with abuse again. You don't ever have to think that. I don't know why I did, but you can think that you can just know that what you want to be around. And then when people are abusive, you know how to exit sooner or how to be more caring of yourself while it's happening. But I haven't done it since then, which is probably about 2 years ago now, two and a half. I would do it again. I've been thinking about putting another retreat together for a group so that we could do some intentional healing. It's not for recreational. It's not just to get messed up or anything. It's for the healing part of it. And some people are like, oh, I don't do drugs like that, but they'll take like antidepressants. And I'm like, interesting way of thinking. Because I would rather do a God-made medicine than a man-made medicine all day long. So it just depends on how you want to think about it. But yeah, that stuff did help. I would say everything that I did helped, but it was actually the self-accountability that helped the most out of everything. And realizing how important we really are. We have, and I don't know how true this is, but we have worlds that exist because we exist. And it's our state of being that affects everything that's made because of us and that exists because of us. And so that's pretty significant. Any questions? Anything else that you guys want to add? Okay. I know that was a lot, guys, and if you guys have anything, I know Ryan had, yeah, thank you. Ryan and I did a one-on-one last week. I think it was really helpful for Ryan because he had some good benefits after the call. If anybody wants anything like that, y'all just let me know. And I will see you guys. You know what? I told y'all we'll do this. Yeah, Ryan made some money after our call. Yeah, so after, so if you guys, I know that I said that we'll skip and we'll do every 2 weeks. I actually, with the question and answer, I feel like the week after should be a class again. So it's just not too much time in between. So I will have another class next week. I'm gonna go more into the boundaries, validation and understanding yourself so that you know if you're making the right decision on how you're making your boundaries, and then also just understanding yourself a little bit deeper, because I know we're just going deeper and deeper into this, so there's a better understanding of it all, because I feel like the world basically superficially touches on this stuff, and until you really know how to do it, it's kind of like, I don't know, it can be messy at times, and I want to help with that. But yeah, thank you guys. Love you too, Erica. Thank you so much. And thank you for letting me serve you guys. You guys have a great day. I will see you guys next week.